You're listening to the Love Unplugged podcast, episode 99. Do you have an idea of something you want to create or maybe do? Don't walk, run with it. Often, if we sit on something for a while, we can talk ourselves out of it, or that negative voice can creep in and tell us how crazy we are for even thinking about it. And so then we don't. My guest today got an idea for a business and ran with the idea immediately. And because of this, she was filled with excitement, passion, and momentum. And guess what? She actually did it. She launched her dream business. So let's tune in and hear her journey. Hey there, I'm your host, Jessica Fergon, and I am passionate about doing the inner work needed to reach your goals. Let me be your guide as we navigate all the fears and insecurities that surface when it's time to step outside of your comfort zone. Along with my knowledgeable guests and industry experts, I'm here to teach you how to reawaken your life purpose and passion and create the steps to turn your intentions into action. Ultimately, my goal is to empower you to rise above those blocks holding you back and start living a life that you are worthy and deserving of. So come on, it's time to slow down. Find a comfy spot with your favorite organic tea and get inspired. Thank you for tuning in to the Love Unplugged podcast. Hello, loves. Today I am joined by the lovely Bailey Marshall, a social media influencer, a photographer, and founder of ACAI Dude, an acai bowl and coffee food truck based here in Vancouver, BC. And I absolutely love her bowls. So I'm just so excited to dive into this with her and learn all about her story. So welcome, Bailey. I'm just so honored to have you as my guest, and I'm so excited to learn all about your entrepreneurial journey and your advice.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited.
Amazing. Now, I would love to start at the beginning. How did the idea of starting ACAI Dude come to be?
Honestly, it was a pretty spontaneous thing. I was in Bali. Okay, to start from the very beginning, I'm from California, so I grew up having acai bowls, and my family always kind of made them, but I kind of found that in Vancouver area, they just aren't that popular. And on family vacations, going to Hawaii and whatnot, they're just kind of everywhere. And I feel just now in Vancouver, they're kind of up and coming. And so I was on a trip in Bali and I was eating them every single day. And I kind of just had this idea of I make these at home. I love them. They're so healthy. It's a really good vegan option. And I can't have dairy, so I love making it coconut milk. And that's kind of how the idea just kind of came about. I was honestly just sipping mojitos at a pool club in Bali. And I was I'm just going to do it. I'm just going to start a smoothie bowl truck. And then it was, like I said, it was a very spontaneous thing. It definitely wasn't thought out or planned. And then I kind of just came up with the name. And I remember being on vacation and then Googling to see if it even existed. And I couldn't believe that it didn't. And then, I just kind of came home and ran with it.
Now, how old were you when you started this food truck?
I was 23.
Wow, that's pretty young. That's amazing. Did you always want to start your own business? Was that something that you were striving to do?
Starting my own business is definitely something I've always wanted to do. I definitely didn't know what. Every single person in my family, my parents and all my siblings, they all own their own business. So I knew that was something that I wanted to do, but I had no idea that it would be in the food industry.
Amazing. Now, what was your experience like starting your business? Now, food trucks obviously is very different, right? There's a lot more regulations. There's a lot more equipment probably, and a truck itself, all that type of stuff that you have to figure out. So how did you start your business? What were the steps that you took to create it? Did you have a business plan? How did you source all this information out?
Yeah, no, totally. So, the first things first, I loved the name ACAI Dude. And I don't know if you've seen that YouTuber that says ACAI Dude. Have you seen that before?
No.
So that's how literally 2 years ago, it was this trending Vine or YouTube thing of this guy who would always just say to his friends ACAI Dude. And I'm pretty sure he was just really high and just kind of slurred his words. But anyways, it kind of just took off and people started saying it. Just kind of a funny thing to say. And that's how I thought of the name ACAI Dude to play off that. And I originally, when I thought of the name, I was oh my gosh, that for sure is already taken. And then it wasn't. So that was the first thing I wanted to claim and get. So as soon as I came back from Bali, I registered my name in BC and whatnot. And then I remember DMing this girl on Instagram who already had the name ACAI Dude as her username. And I was hey, I'm wanting to start a business. I'll I'll PayPal you like $30 if you change your name. And she lived in like London or something. And she was like, sure, okay. And so that's kind of like my first few steps starting Acai Dude. And then my favorite process of it all was the branding and whatnot. And so I went to high school with a girl, her name's Molly Jones, and she's based in the Fraser Valley. And she went into like graphic design, and she's like super, super talented. And I just followed her on Instagram, and I just like all the stuff that she was like producing with her work was totally the vibe that I wanted to go with Acai Dude. So that was like my second step, was figuring out like the branding and the logo and the color design and whatnot. So that was kind of the first things first, because that's like my favorite part to do, anything that's like creative. And then in regards to like getting a food truck was definitely tricky. Thankfully, the food truck that I did purchase was already a previously owned smoothie truck. So like it was next to zero alterations inside the actual truck itself. I already had like built up for freezers and fridges and like a stand-up like sandwich board kind of freezer that I can like make my bowls on, and like it was already up to grade and already had sinks and everything. So it was already built for like a cold frozen kind of truck, which was kind of nice. That saved a lot of time and a lot of work. So it was just like more so just like purchasing the blenders and whatnot, and then obviously like taking like the entire outside is like a vinyl wrap. With a lot of people, it's paint, but it's actually like one giant sticker. So it's super interchangeable and whatnot. So that was kind of like the next step. And then I feel like the hardest part of like the whole process is the paperwork and just registering with food safe and whatnot, obviously because you're dealing with food and like the health and whatnot and making sure it's up to code. That was the hardest part, was just getting like your menu approved and making sure that like your base of operations was like health code approval. And like it's, as you can imagine, they're just really like nitpicky, and it's just, you know, for a good reason, right? Like you're eating it.
Mm-hmm.
So that was probably the hardest part. And I think that was like, it was just a ton of paperwork. Like, I don't think people realize how much paperwork it is to like obviously start in like the restaurant kind of, or like food business, just because all has to be up to code. So, but yeah, it's kind of the beginning of it all.
Wow. This is probably like, this is brand new to you. So obviously you're learning as you're going, and
Oh,
this is
100%. I'm still learning today. Like I always say to people, like, I'm just like, yeah, like if you have any questions about business, trust me, like it's all based off my experience. I'm new, I'm learning. So like I always say that to you.
That's amazing. And that just proves that, you know, you don't need to know it all before you start. Just start. You're going to learn along the way. You're going to make errors and learn from them and all that type of stuff. But I would love to know, like, did you take this on your own, or like, did you hire a business coach to kind of help you through different areas? Like, what was that like?
Yeah, no, I didn't hire anybody. Like in retrospect, I mean, I think any help or anyone who could like mentor you or whatnot would be great in anything. But like, I kind of just like ran with it. Like I was just like, I had this idea. I felt like it's really, really good about it. I had a good gut feeling. I knew, and I felt really confident in the branding, and I felt really confident in like the ingredients of what I was making, because it was like vegan friendly. It was like locally sourced berries, and it was organic. So I knew like it was something that I felt like people in the Fraser Valley and Vancouver would love, just because there are a lot of people, you know, that are into health and whatnot. So I just kind of like ran with it. And I kind of do that with like anything in my life. Like I'm very spontaneous. I kind of just let it be, and what will be will be. Like that's just always kind of how I've been. So no, it was pretty solo. I even drove the truck. I'm the only one who's been the driver for the truck. Yeah. Retrospect, I took on like, I think too much. And like, that's what I've learned, is like delegating and like getting rid of jobs that I don't need to be doing, because in the beginning, like I'm very much like a worker. Like I wanted to do everything like myself. And of course, like it didn't work out necessarily that way, because it is a truck and I don't know a lot about like auto stuff, but like now I know how to change a flat tire. I know how to like oil changes or like anything like random like that. I have like an idea, just because I've had to like learn on the way. But that's something I wish in retrospect I either learned more about, because it's one thing to add in like a brand new business and a food truck, but also like the mechanical, like auto part of it is like freaking hard.
I can only imagine. I'm like useless when it comes to my car. I'm like, I'm taking it to the dealership. They can fix it. I can't even think about changing a tire. I'm like, I don't even know.
The amount of times that like car issues happen, because it's just like a lot of work and voltage, because you have to have a generator to supply everything. Like most restaurants or cafes, like they just plug into a wall and their blender works, but like we're completely on our own. So if your generator or something's not adding up, it's one giant math problem. And I'm like, oh my goodness, like I'm so bad at math. Like this is crazy. So that was definitely interesting.
Oh my God, I'm so on the same page. I would be like, yeah, I don't know what I'm doing.
Oh my gosh, yeah, like call my dad,
Yeah.
like help, like freaking out. So honestly, so many times though, like at events, because like I said, it was like just me driving the truck, and it's like a truck, 3 to 4 girls. Like my employees were all in high school for the most part, and thankfully, like so many of the places that we went to and like fairs and whatnot, everyone was just like so nice and helpful. So if anything was like happening, like there was always be like men around that we could be like, hey, like, do you know anything like this? Or like, can you help lift this? And like everyone's just so helpful and whatnot, which is kind of nice.
That's really good. I love that. Now, did you jump in headfirst full time with the Acai Dude, or did you like start it as a side hustle type thing while you had another job as well?
Yeah, so it was kind of like a side hustle thing. Like my goal, I mean, like obviously I'm sure we'll go into like the whole COVID thing and whatnot. But like my goal was for it to be like a full-time kind of thing. But I also knew that was starting a smoothie bowl business. It was definitely going to be geared towards like summertime, just because it rains majority of the seasons here.
Mm-hmm.
So, but I liked the idea that why I originally chose doing a food truck first is that I could close down during the winter time and not have to pay rental space and worry about making sure I make my rent and whatnot. So that's originally why I did that, and so that was kind of a part-time thing. So I was still working full-time at home during the same time, and also like when I launched, it was on Canada Day last year, not the one, just the one before that.
Mm-hmm.
And I wasn't ready until Canada Day. So a lot of the times, a lot of like the application process happens in January, February, but like I just wasn't ready then. So it wasn't even like a full-time summer with the Acai Dude. Like we were still like working like 3-4 times a week, which is great. But like this summer, but like was supposed to be at least like 6 times a week.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, it was a side kind of thing.
Well, we'll get into kind of what's next for Acai Dude, given the circumstances of the world right now. But before we get into that, I want to kind of dive into owning a food truck and recipes and all that type of stuff. So how did you come up with your menu, your bowls and whatnot, and the recipes? Like, what was that process for you, like sourcing those ingredients and like figuring out what goes with what and what people wanted? And
Yeah, totally. I think because how I kind of mentioned, like I was already kind of making acai bowls like all the time, so I already played around with the recipes quite a bit, and like I honestly just built the recipes of like based off of like what I like and like my family and friends like.
mm-hmm.
And then I think it also helps that like my mom went to culinary school, so like my mom's a chef and she's just like so good. So I've always like grown up around like I don't know, just like eating really good quality food, especially like local or organic. So I think that's what I really appreciated, and I wanted to bring that into the food truck. So it was honestly just like whipping up concoctions like in my kitchen and being like to my sister, like, hey, do you like this? Do you like this? And I knew because I have 3 smoothie bowls, I knew I wanted to hit like different types of like taste. So definitely with like Bebe bowl, like that's named after me. And it's like more of like a tart kind of bowl, which I love because it's like a raspberry based. And like Ocean Breeze, for instance, I knew is more of like a sweeter end. So I think it'd be really good for like kids and whatnot. So I definitely like made sure I kind of hit like all the palettes and whatnot. But yeah, it was just kind of like a spur of the moment. I think like the hardest thing for me that I definitely wanted to like achieve was the way I wanted the bowl to look like on top, because my focus, obviously, my background's in like blogging and Instagram. So I wanted to make sure for sure it was like Instagram worthy.
Mm-hmm.
So just like looking through like Pinterest or from traveling to like Hawaii and Bali, that's kind of where I took my inspiration and whatnot.
Now, what is it like running a food truck, right? Like, I think everybody wants to kind of know the behind the scenes, like, what is it actually like having a food truck, figuring out, where you're going to be each day? Do you like, what is that process like? Do you have to get approvals? Like,
Yeah, totally. It is so fast paced and it can be very last minute. And also like we did some work like in the film industry too, which is extremely last minute, like working on film sets and stuff.
mm-hmm.
So basically like, I mean, like I mentioned, like in January, February is like when you can apply to everything and you kind of just like send off everything and just kind of see like if they end up liking you, if you're a right fit. But it is a ton of paperwork because my health permits are based in the Fraser Valley. So if I go anywhere out of the Fraser Valley, I have to redo the entire health permit for a different city. And sometimes I'll only have a certain window to do it. And it's like a very extensive, like 10-page thing. It has to like everything down to like every single product, where it's from, every single ingredient, if they're being combined, if they need to be in like dry storage or cold storage, where they're sourced from, expiry date. It has to be so detailed. So that was like definitely like a big process in regards to applying every single place. And I think the hardest part definitely was like having to redo the permits because every single city's different, right? So when I go work in White Rock, it's different. If I go work in Richmond, actually Richmond for some reason it was like the hardest one to get approval for. I'm not too sure out of every area in the mainland. It's all different. So that's definitely like the hardest process. And then even things like you have to have fire extinguishers. And I had to have 3 different types in my food truck. And it was kind of crazy because I know you had to have one in the front and then you had one during like in the cooking area. But then in Richmond, they had like the certain code where you need like the biggest one you have. So I have like literally like 5 extinguishers are just like hanging around ready to be used. Like, so yeah, it's just like, it's so different depending where you are. And it is, like I mentioned, it's just like a ton of paperwork and it's super fast paced, but I love it. It is super fun. So keeps you busy. That's for sure.
I can definitely see that. Now, for those wanting to start a food truck, based on your own experience and your journey creating one, what key advice have you learned that you'd like to share with them?
I think because of like COVID and everything's going on, I mean, I've been like very vocal about this on my social media, is that of course what's going on with the world, like all of our events have been canceled. And I think in retrospect, if I were to give any advice to anyone who wanted to start a food truck, like really decide like how big you actually need it, because in retrospect, like I don't need a truck that's 14 feet long. Like I would get away with a cute cart, you know what I mean? Like, and it's really hard now with like permits and trying to get places because my truck is so big. And there's different like levels of food truck permits. There's like A, B, C, and D, and I'm food truck A just because I don't have any meat. You know what I mean? I'm not cooking anything. And a lot of the places like right now that are open for food trucks to kind of park, they're only doing like little carts. They don't have enough. They don't want to do like the big, huge food truck and whatnot, just because it could attract crowds and whatnot. So I think in retrospect, just like really trying to establish the size that you actually need for it. And like, you don't need to go like balls to the wall. Like I kind of just like went super hard with like how big and jumbo. And I think in retrospect, like I feel like I just kind of take things at a time. Or for instance, I spent way too much money in like the sound system, and half the events you can't even use your own sound system because they already have music playing. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So I think just like really evaluating like what's actually important and what's not, because I kind of got caught in like so caught up in just the experience and making sure that it was like Instagram worthy that I should have just taken a step back, be like, look, no, I don't need to get like this crazy expensive speaker built into the truck that lights up in different colors. Like, you know what I mean? So I think just not going so hard at the beginning and just trying to be as like cost effective and as, you know, and whatnot.
I love that. That's such great advice. Obviously you started last year at the beginning of summer. So in that summer, in that period that you were actively using your truck, mm-hmm. Did you see the success that you had planned? Did you accomplish the goals that you set out for yourself?
I think I was just like, I mean, yes, like I definitely was like so happy. Like I was just ecstatic just to any time to be out in the truck. I just like couldn't even wrap my head around it sometimes when people like would come up and like they said they drove just to Cultus Lake just to like get smoothie bowls. Like it's still just till this day, it's just like a crazy concept to me. Like sometimes I honestly forget that like I'm a food truck owner. So yeah, like I definitely feel like it was like a great turnout. Like we were pretty busy. Like we were working like 3-4 times a week just at Cultus Lake on added on with, you know, some random events that people had cancellations or pulled out. We were able to squeeze them on the list. But like I said, like a lot of application starts in the beginning of the year and I just wasn't ready by then. So I definitely missed out on a lot of really cool opportunities like Faded in the Park or like the P&E. So that's why this year is just, you know, such a bummer with everything kind of going on for everybody. Is that like I applied to all these things and like this summer is supposed to be like my official like rollout. You know what I mean? Like so busy, jam-packed, but just is what it is.
Now, how did you celebrate the launch of your food truck? Like that must have been a huge moment, because obviously, I mean, given everything you've said, it's a lot of work to launch a business, to launch a food truck and do all that on your own. I would love to hear, you know, what did you do to kind of celebrate that moment?
I had an acai bowl or acai dudes launch party at my parents' house, and it was just like, they have just like a really great backyard that's really good for entertainment. They have like a pool and stuff. And so I brought the truck up. I invited like influencers and bloggers and food bloggers and family and friends. And I gave out free bowls. I like hired a DJ. Like I collabed with like XOXO wines. I supplied some wine. And then like New Vodka Soda supplied some drinks. So like I think that it helped because I was already in the blogging kind of world. I was able to get like these people like collabing with me on this launch party. So I definitely celebrated it. It was the best time ever. Like, oh, I can go back in time and relive it. It was just like so much fun to be there and like finally just be, you know, like celebrating like, okay, like I did it and like here it is and whatnot. So it was pretty cool.
I love that you took that time to celebrate. A lot of people just kind of move on to like now running the business and kind of trying to achieve those next goals. And they don't take the moment to like be present and be like, okay, look what I just did. Like,
I'm like, I love work hard, but I also love play hard. So, and like I was talking about the launch party prior to me even launching. Like I was planning that before. I feel like I even had like the real stuff you needed to like operate a business. So I was just like I said, just caught up, so excited about the creative process because I feel like that's just like what my strong suit is in. So yeah, I definitely love that. I love celebrating the good things.
Amazing. So what did you struggle with most creating your business and how did you navigate it? So whether it was, business logistics outside of your comfort zone, you talked a little bit about the mechanics or, all the paperwork and stuff, but was there anything else that kind of stumped you, or did it come down to maybe your mindset? You needed to do some work on your mindset to get in the right headspace to now be a business owner that had employees, or, maybe you had some fears that came to surface because you were stepping into the uncomfortable zone, something that you've never done before.
Yeah, I definitely can it was definitely like a new zone as I was like a new, business owner. And like, I feel like my biggest thing is that I didn't want to like disappoint anybody, or especially if one thing for sure, because like I already have an allergy to dairy, but like if someone had like an allergy to nuts or something, like I definitely wanted to make sure that it was so safe for everybody. And I think it helped that I had like a background in Cactus Club. Like I worked at Cactus Club for 6 years. So I was already dealing with like allergies and whatnot. So that was definitely something I always just would get like really nervous or stressed out about, or if someone like if something happened, like cross-contamination. So that was something that was like definitely new for me and out of my comfort zone. As well as driving the truck sometimes would like give me a ton of anxiety. Like I would almost sometimes like psych myself out because I would be driving like in North Vancouver or downtown Vancouver in like a 14-foot truck. And I was just like, it was just sometimes really overwhelming. And especially when you come up to an event, they're like, hey, parallel park right here. And I'm just like, I can barely parallel park my Jeep. Like, what do you mean? Like, it's just so stressful. Mm-hmm. But I don't know. Like, honestly, like my sister, Skylar, was definitely like my rock. Like, she's so calm, cool, collected in really high stress situations. And sometimes like, because it was like my baby, I would just be so stressed that I couldn't even think straight. And she would like helped me so much. Even for instance, like for a little bit, we had like issues with our battery and the battery would just go out and then I would have to like jumpstart it or it wouldn't start or something. So that was definitely like the mechanical side of it was like super stressed because I wasn't used to that kind of stuff. Like I didn't know car stuff at all prior to like learning ACAI dudes.
It's so good to have that support network or an individual there that kind of helps ground you in those moments where you were just like freaking out.
Oh my gosh, I know. Like there was even another instance, but there's like this like automatic fan right by the driver's seat that you can like turn on if you want like it's like an old school fan, that like a little circle fan and like this little cage thing. And usually it's fine. Sometimes you turn on, sometimes I turn off, whatever. And my sister and I were on our way to an event. And the fan was on and then it started randomly sparking as we're driving on the road. Like what? Sparking. And I don't even know. Like I swear, like every week there's just something new. Like just so much can go wrong in like just a truck, especially if it's a bit of an older truck that you've like run out to like make it look cute. Like you just, you know what I mean? Like the underneath, you just never really know. And I remember to be like, oh my gosh, just freaking out, having to like pull over, making sure everything was like, okay. Like I actually thought that potentially I would have to use the fire extinguisher. Like I just didn't know what to expect, but it was all good.
Oh my God, that would have been insane. You're driving this huge ass truck and then something starts to spark.
Oh my gosh. Like I don't even know what was going on. And the crazy thing was like a week before that, my sister and I were in my Jeep and I have like a brand new like 2018 Jeep and she has her seat warmer on and I'm not kidding. We're driving down the highway and her seat underneath her started like smoking.
What?
And that happened a week before the spark situation. So I was like, I don't know what is going on. But anyways, I had to get the seat warmers completely replaced because something was wrong with like the warranty or whatever, like the manufacturer's warranty or whatever. So I had to like pull into a gas station. Also, in retrospect, if your car is smoking, don't go into a gas station. Like I realized that was the stupidest thing I ever could have done. But I was just like a bored, like just pull over. That was the closest thing to us. But Anyways, yeah.
I wouldn't have even thought of that. Like now that you say that, don't pull into a gas station. I'm like, yeah, of course. Why wouldn't you? I mean, why
Right.
would you, right? But you don't think about those type of things.
No, I literally did it. It actually wasn't even me who like thought of that. It was like my friends like who picked us up. We're just like,
Oh, that's hilarious. Now, I would love to know, looking back over everything that you've done, what's like something that you were super proud about? Like, or maybe something like an experience that was just unreal that you look back and you're like, dang, like I did that. I was part of that, or I was there, and something like that.
I think I'm just like really proud of like the community, like the really supportive people, especially during like COVID and whatnot. Everyone kind of being like, it's okay, like it's a crazy world, and like just learning to be okay with that. So I think just the community itself, and particularly like Van City Business Babes. I've
Mm-hmm.
been like going to their panels, and like and then I was a panelist talking about ACAI did last year, and they're just so supportive, like all of those girls. And I think I'm just like really proud to have been a part of like a few of their events with the Society Dude personally and professionally. So I think that's like one of the things I look back on. I'm just like, wow, that's like really cool. Just like it was like a crazy instance because they asked me to be on the panel. So I was on the panel, and then I was like looking out at my food truck and just getting like seeing my employees like give out bowls. And it was just like a crazy surreal moment of like, this is so nuts. Like this is so cool. But yeah, I'm
That's
definitely grateful for that.
awesome. Now, on a personal level, how do you set yourself up for success daily? Like, do you have routines or practices that you put in place? You
Oh,
have a side dude that you were very busy with. Obviously, it's a little bit on hold right now, but having that and being an influencer and having your own business in that way, that must keep you very busy. So, how do you stay on top of everything daily and, not go nuts?
I mean, honestly, like because of like quarantine and whatnot, I feel like my daily routines have been a bit like wonky. I feel like everyone's has been a bit like out of place. But for me, like I'm not much of like a routine. I have a few routine things, but I really can't be in too much of a routine because I just get like kind of over it or just I don't know, like I need to be trying new things. I mean, a few things I just like to do are just my mornings with Rufus and Scooter, my dogs. I love taking them out and like getting a morning coffee and kind of doing that. I like, moving my body if I'm stressed or whatnot. I think just the biggest thing is just having like a positive mindset. Like I recently have been really into like manifesting and I've been like reading up on it. I just like purchased a book on it. And then I also purchased like the 5 minute journal. Have you heard of that
Mhm.
before?
I use it all the time. It's awesome.
Yes, it's amazing. So I think just part of like my routine of just, trying to be, reaching towards being successful is just having a positive mindset and just kind of going with the flow because it's not in my control anyway. So yeah, but we'll be.
Totally. Now, we've touched a little tiny bit on COVID, and I know that it's impacted, obviously, your business with everything that's going on in the world right now. So I want to know how you've dealt with the changes brought on by COVID. What has your experience been like with maybe the feelings that you might have had, or, dealing with changing like all your plans and your goals and all that type of stuff?
Yeah, no, like it's definitely like been super frustrating, not gonna lie, just because as I mentioned, like this summer I felt like was like my first like rollout just because we had so many events booked and it was just supposed to be like the raddest summer and I was like mentally anticipating just like working all summer and then I was just going to go off to Europe for a month just kind of to work myself. So, of course, like everything's been changed. All of the events have been canceled, and anything that is going on, like you can't have crowds more than 50 people. So, a lot of the events, like, the Peony and whatnot, and like music festivals are, that's impossible. And it's been also tricky. Well, I moved to White Rock, so I was based in the Fraser Valley. So, because I moved to a new city, I obviously had to redo my permits. But because a lot of people weren't working, it took a while to even just get someone to even get my truck reapproved. And then finding out the city of White Rock doesn't have a food truck program. Like they don't allow any food trucks unless there is an actual event. But of course, there's no events going on. They only allow 8-foot carts on the beach. And then I talked to, like Surrey area, but because like South Surrey area, there's Islands Cafe because they have one smoothie bowl, like it's 2 months of competition, so I can't park there. Like it's been really surprising how shocking it is to find work for the food truck because I always hear people say like, it would do so well here in White Rock. It's totally like the beach vibe, like this and that. But it's like, tell us the city council. Like, I don't know what to tell you. And then I was like, okay, I'm just going to pivot. I'm going to apply for skip the dishes or whatnot. they didn't like, that didn't work out. So unfortunately, it actually has been like a series of just like wrong turns, like dead ends. And like it honestly, not until like the last like month or so, I've just kind of became at peace with it, because I was just like so bummed out, because I personally just see the potential in it. But I think just with the way the world's going right now, everyone's just on a hold. And I have to kind of remind myself, like, a lot of people are in the same boat, and it could be like way worse. Like, I'm just grateful to still have like my work from home and whatnot. But yeah, like, I think the biggest thing that I've learned is just to learn to pivot and learn to when to like readjust. And like, in a way, I've been able to like take a step back and like reevaluate and things that I do differently. So I'm definitely thinking of downsizing. Like, I'm going to continue, of course, doing acai do, but I'm thinking of just downsizing so that I don't need something so big. Like, you know, like, and you just even finding parking for it, and it always needs power to it and whatnot, is really tricky. So if I don't need, you know, that much room, just because I'm a level 1 food truck, like I don't have any like meat, I don't have that kind of stuff. I can get away with, you know, having like a little cute like retro van or something like that, or getting a little trailer that I can like hitch onto like my Jeep or whatnot. So I think it's been kind of nice. I've been able to like take a step back and like, okay, like, am I doing this like, one, cost effective? Like, I need to make sure like there's a good margin of like, you know, like costs and then what I would be making and whatnot. And yeah, just learning to pivot and just go with the flow.
That's mind blowing that White Rock would be so limited. And the fact that, okay, so I mean, I know Islands Cafe, they do have a smoothie bowl, but I'm like, that's one place. Like, really?
I know, it's like so sad. And like, don't get me wrong, like, I love Islands Cafe, like they're so cool, and it's similar vibe of acai dude. But yeah, like, it's kind of just, it's so funny. Like, I really did try and challenge like this city of White Rock, kind of being like, what do you mean you don't have a food truck program? Like, what? Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's not like I'm just asking to, you know, park for free. It's like, no. Like, there's always, whenever you go to park somewhere, they either take a certain percentage of your sales or it's a flat rate. And that wasn't even a discussion. Like, it wasn't even open for an idea. And then sometimes like there's ways to get around it. So you can either park on like privately owned lots and just kind of work out a deal. So I talked to the native land that's right beside like White Rock Beach there. Like, as soon as you come in on the left, and I gave them a call, and even then they immediately were just like, nope, we've done it before, not for us, that's it. So it's just been like, it's honestly been like really surprising for me, and it kind of took me back a little bit, because it was really hard to like move around in that industry. And like, I was like, I'm the prime like COVID food, and you know what I mean? Like, it's all takeout, and like all of the girls like always wear gloves. Hair had to be back, and the added thing, you know, would just be the masks. And there was already a glass barrier in between, you know, the people, like customers taking, you know, the orders and whatnot. So it's been like really surprising, but I'm not too sure. I think just, hopefully city, like, you know, White Rock like expands a little bit, and I really hope they do get a food truck program, because it's great. It's so many opportunities down on that strip there. It's just so beautiful.
Totally. I even see you like at Crescent Beach, like that place would be totally awesome at the end parking lot.
Know.
There's so many people down there. Like,
I know. And that's another thing too. Like, I remember having a conversation with Crescent Beach, and they said no. And then I was literally there yesterday, and they had an ice cream truck out there. And I was like, sadness. Like, what if you can't have dairy? Like, I don't know. I think maybe it's just because maybe they just don't know what acai is, or who knows? But it also was a smaller truck, so it could just be like, because every time I like fly anywhere or ask there, like, how big is it? Like 14 feet. They're like, oh, like, that's pretty big or whatever. Like, there's a lot of, it's really busy obviously there. So I don't know. We'll see. Like I said, like, I'm honestly like looking into like doing like something smaller, because I could get away with it. Or like my ultimate goal I would love to have a cafe. So, you know, doors are still open. I just, you know, taking the time to reevaluate and whatnot.
Maybe this is like a gift in disguise, you know, giving you that time to reevaluate, to figure out a different route that might be even more successful than a food truck.
Exactly. Totally. And like, another thing too, like, I would get like many inquiries about people having like weddings in like the Okanagan and stuff. And I had to turn them down just because it's too much wear and tear like on the truck. And it would literally take like 2 days to get there in the truck. Just so slow. But I was thinking like, oh, you know what? If we did have a cute little van or like a little cute trailer, like, I could easily, you know, park it there and rip up in my Jeep, hitch to it, and like spend the weekend there and like then work. Like, I was like, hey, like, now that option could be open if I were to pivot. So like you mentioned, it definitely has, I think, been a blessing in disguise.
Yeah, definitely. Oh, I mean, I definitely see you continuing. I mean, who doesn't love acai bowls? Like, come on, they are so freaking good, and they're perfect for the summer. You can have them for breakfast, you can have them for lunch, you can have them as a treat. Like, they're so good, and I definitely think that you should stay with this idea and just
oh yeah, like I'm 120%. Like, I'm not giving up on it. Like, if I was giving up on it, I would have done it months ago. Like, there's for me, like, I just, one, don't like giving up on things, and two, like, I just see the potential and I feel really good about it. And like, yeah, so, and people on film sets loved them. So I know like that will always be an option too, like working on sets, which is awesome.
Yeah, definitely. Now we have some rapid fire questions from the community. So the first one being, what are your favorite restaurants or food trucks that you recommend trying, obviously aside from your own?
Oh my goodness. Obviously, I'm sure everyone knows Chickpea food truck is so good. So good. It's all vegan and it's amazing. And I also love Tacofino because who doesn't love Tacofino?
Yeah, I definitely agree with that one. Being new to White Rock in the area around here, do you have any restaurants that you love?
Yes. So there's like a really good sushi joint. It's like the only sushi place on the White Rock Strip in the very end, like across from like Boathouse. I don't know the name of it, but it's amazing. They have really good like fresh seafood and whatnot. So good. And I have like a good wine list. So I love like being able to like look out to the ocean and have sushi. Like that's like a new thing for me because I'm from the Fraser Valley. And so like my surroundings was like cows and fields and whatnot. So like it's been so beautiful. Honestly, like really anything on the strip there. Like I also really like number 5 if I'm like going for like a nicer kind of dinner. And then like I mentioned, like Boathouse is really good because they have like a bomb rooftop patio. Like it's so good. Yeah.
100%. If you're going on the strip, you should definitely try out Zapoteca.
Oh, but I've been wanting to. Like that's on like my list for sure. Every time I pass it, it's like so busy and stuff. I need to try it out.
It's so good. They have really, really good stuff. And their drink, I forget what it's called, but it's mezcal based. And
yeah.
Oh, it's so good. You have to try it.
I was in Crescent Beach yesterday and I was at Codelmare or something. It's like one of like there's only 2 restaurants.
Yeah, it's a new one there, right?
It is so good. It's like all Italian food and like their wine list was unreal. Their food is so good. Like I had cod and then my boyfriend had pizza and it was like so good.
Oh, I'm gonna have to try it. I heard good reviews about that place. It took over for the Greek restaurant, I think.
Oh, did it? Like I don't even I'm so new to the area. I didn't even know.
Amazing. So if anybody wants to learn more about you, where can they connect with you? Where do you hang out the most?
Instagram, honestly, anytime, send me a DM. Like I'm an open book. So yeah, the DM is probably the best way. Find me at Bailey Marshall.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much, Bailey, for sharing your journey and for giving us such credible insights into how you created your business and navigated the changes that came along to COVID. I know so many are going to benefit from hearing your story and your advice.
Thank you so much for having me. This is so much fun.
I'm Jessica, and thanks for tuning in today to Love Unplugged, the podcast. If there are any questions or topics you'd love answered on the show, head on over to www.projectloveco.com and share your request with me. If you haven't yet, go to iTunes and subscribe, rate, and review this podcast and share it with a loved one. Your feedback means the world to me, and the community we've created is what fuels our discussions here. After all, this is all for you. Join me next time for another unplugged conversation.